In today's show, we got injury updates for Deandre, Ayton, and Scoot Henderson, and big opportunities for Blazers youngsters behind them. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine, make it your first listen, and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking injury updates, a lengthy injury report, no formal update from the Blazers as I'm recording this around 5 p.m. on Tuesday evening. You are listening to Wednesday, February 12th show. I appreciate you listening. We will talk about the injury updates. We'll talk about the opportunity that these potential injuries, or these, at least in the immediate term, create for Donovan Clingan, coming off the best offensive performance of his career and what it means for him in the immediate future and hopefully going forward as well, for him to seize a chance to just show that he deserves more time on the court. And we'll talk a little about Shaedon Sharpe because there's some impacts there as well, depending on how many of the folks whose names are on the injury list are not able to participate when the Blazers play their final game before the All-Star break on Wednesday. That's what we're headed for. Blazers wrap up their pre-All-Star slate in Denver on Wednesday, a rematch with the Denver Nuggets, who, of course, thrashed them on Monday evening, a 29-point beatdown that could have been worse, but the Nuggets were in cruise control for at least the final half of the fourth quarter and likely more of it. Nikola Jokic didn't even play after the first three quarters. Without like a traditional preview of like what to expect, the thing to expect is the roster is going to look a little bit different, because in that game against Denver on Monday, early in the third quarter, Deandre Ayton went out with what appeared to be a left calf injury and did not return. And then in the fourth quarter, about 3 minutes in the fourth quarter, Scoot Henderson appeared to hurt his right ankle and left and did not return. The Blazers released an early afternoon update on their official injury reports, and both Scoot Henderson and Deandre Ayton have been ruled out for Wednesday's rematch with the Nuggets. I don't think it's any surprise that either of them are out. DA, it's not surprising whatsoever, because it was a non-contact injury. You know, he kind of started to go up for a rebound and then immediately grabbed his left leg and they had to foul to get him out of there. And he walked back to the locker room with some help from his teammates and putting very, very little pressure on his left leg. Didn't look great. We have not received the dreaded PDF in relation to Deandre Ayton. If you're a long-time listener to the program, you know that when the Blazers have a long-term, several, not just like listed as questionable or treated as day-to-day, but like an injury that expands beyond day-to-day or, even expands beyond a week, they typically release a formal injury announcement, and it'll come to the media people's inboxes via email, and it will have an attached PDF. And if you see your name on that PDF, that's bad news. You get a PDF related to an injury, that's bad news. Speaking of which, no PDF for Rob Williams. He remains questionable with right knee soreness. Jeremy Grant also questionable with right knee soreness, and Chris Murray on that injury report with a left quad contusion. You will recall that on Monday, none of those three gentlemen, Robert Williams, Jeremy Grant, or Chris Murray, participated in that game, and the Blazers were somewhat shorthanded going into that one. So if we assume that those gentlemen won't play, because if you give them... if they take off Wednesday, the Blazers don't play again until next Thursday, February 20th, when they're back at home against the Los Angeles Lakers and their newly acquired Slovenian star, along with an older gentleman who recently celebrated his 40th birthday. And if you just say, okay, we can punt one game for health, you're closing in on 2 weeks, 10 days without action. It is a nice little break for guys to get healthy. This is a game that you can say, hey, there's a lot more upside in sitting out this game. And often this week in the NBA, there's weird shenanigans with guys sitting out for various reasons and players like going off for big nights. This is a shenanigans week if there ever is one in the league, because we're kind of transitioning to the quote-unquote second half of the season, which is more like the final third of the season, and teams' priorities are like, we're post-deadline, and teams' like priorities and focus are much more narrowed in at this point in terms of short, long, immediate term priorities. But so we haven't seen, we haven't seen a PDF with Rob Williams. I think that's good. That we haven't seen it. That's a very, very good sign. I don't anticipate he would play. I don't anticipate Jeremy Grant would play. Chris Murray, because he's on the younger side, I think is more of a coin flip. But I think the Blazers will be very cautious with Rob and Jeremy, and I would be surprised if either of those gentlemen with a questionable designation played. Obviously, you're not going to get Scoot. His participation in the Rising Stars game, which is on Friday, is up in the air, but I would say not playing Wednesday puts him, and being ruled out Tuesday for a game on Wednesday, pretty unlikely to participate in the Rising Stars game. I would put it at a very, very low chance. Although I hope he does. I hope they give him the go-ahead and they're just being cautious and he gets to play in a fake game and not a real one. But I wouldn't count on it. If he's ruled out early for this one, it's not a great sign. Deandre Ayton, though, I'm not reporting anything here. I want to be clear. I'm anticipating we get a PDF with Ayton. I'm anticipating a longer absence from Deandre Ayton just because of the nature of the way that strain looked. It's soft tissue issues, calf issues. Like that's not a thing where it's like, yeah, take a week and see you're good. Typically, it certainly can be. We don't know the level. The language of the Blazers in their injury report are calling a left calf strain. I am anticipating on Wednesday at some point we will get the PDF I will get a PDF in my inbox. And obviously on Wednesday's program, or the program I record on Wednesday for Thursday evening, I'll get you updated on everything you might need to know about that one. The injury, however, creates an opportunity. Let me be 100% clear. It is bad when dudes get hurt. No one, certainly not this particular podcaster, thinks that injuries have silver linings. But injuries are indeed part of this thing. They are part of the experiments of playing 82 regular season basketball games. You play 3 to 5 basketball games a week. Players get hurt. That is just the nature of it. And when players get hurt, there's opportunity for players behind them in the depth chart. And this game, at least Wednesday's game against Denver, and depending on how long DA is out, he might be back as soon as Thursday when they come back after the break. But if he were to miss, another little bit of time after that, it is a real opportunity for Donovan Clingan. And I think let's narrow it and say like it begins on Wednesday with a really seriously big opportunity for him, because it might be no Deandre Ayton and no Rob Williams. I anticipate that Rob will not play. So I think that both of the centers that are, ahead of him and next to him, I guess, kind of in the depth chart, will not be available. And Donovan Clingan will have a chance to start and play real serious minutes in at least one game and perhaps more going forward, or at least, depending on the depth chart at center could get a little bit shorter, which would allow Clingan more opportunity to play. Let's talk about DC's opportunity and what it means for him and how he's done in big minute roles this season. We'll talk all about DC in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk WayFair. It's the new year. We've made it to February. You are post-holidays, and you are probably looking to give your home a little TLC, a little tender, loving care, and decluttering and refreshing your space can help you get back into a routine or just feel a little bit more peace, or honestly, just feel a little bit cleaner. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or you just want a new look to begin 2025, WayFair has everything you need, and it's all within your budget. You can look at their huge furniture selection, browse through it quickly, and find pieces that fit your style and budget. Plus, once you find what you like, you can get hassle-free delivery even on the larger items. WayFair's site is easy to navigate, is easy to look through. They got everything sorted by whatever you want. They'll recommend stuff as you're browsing along through there, and there's something for every style. Plus, there's something for every space. So if you live in a big old house that you need to fill, or you live in a tiny apartment that you need to be efficient with, WayFair is going to find a solution for you. Give your home the refresh it needs with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WayFair.com. WayFair, every home, every style. All right. The Deandre Ayton injury is bad news. You never want to see someone get hurt. You never want to see someone get hurt in the manner that he did, where it's just like a non-contact thing where it's like, oh, that's bad, and like had to get himself out of the game. It's bad news. But with his absence, at least from Wednesday's game, and with Rob Williams' potential absence, at least from Wednesday's game, there is a chance for Donovan Clingan, the Blazers' rookie center, to step into a much larger role. Oh, I missed this in the first segment. Let me get to this really quickly. The other person whose name is on the injury list is Matisse Thybulle, who has been out with a sprained ankle since Christmas, basically, since December. On January 11th was the last update we heard, was that Matisse Thybulle had not sustained any setback in his return to court activities, but he just needed more time, and his status would be updated in 2 weeks. That was on January 11th. I'm recording this on February 11th. That was a month ago. Some severe grade 3 ankle sprains can cost dudes months. I don't think necessarily there's anything nefarious or anything, any funny business going on with Matisse Thybulle's injury, but here's what I think. He has a really bad ankle sprain, and the Blazers in general, very broadly speaking, are pretty bad at communicating and being transparent about injuries. And so, like, there isn't really anything to report vis-a-vis Matisse, is my guess, is they're like, yeah, he's just still not ready. And they're somewhat uncomfortable saying, yeah, he's still not ready. So they're going with the no news is no news approach, but Matisse Thybulle will not play in a single game for the Blazers prior to the All-Star break. Will he play this season? I don't know. You would think he would want to. The other thought I've had is that, like, if the Blazers were fully healthy and Matisse Thybulle was also healthy, would he even be in the rotation? You think, yeah, that's your gut to say yeah, but I'm not 100% sure. He's not playing over 2. He's not playing over Denny. He's not playing over Jeremy Grant. He's not playing over Shaedon Sharpe. That's for sort of like in the 2, 3, 4 range that he plays ahead of. You know, he'd play ahead of Chris Murray, but there's been nights this year when the Blazers go 8 deep and Chris Murray doesn't play. So I think you're talking about Matisse Thybulle as a 9th guy. If he were healthy and if the roster were full, I hope he gets to play this year because a lost season would stink for him. But we just don't. There's no updates coming from the Blazers. Do not hold your breath on that one. Okay, let's talk Donovan Clingan. Clingan is coming off the best offensive performance of his career on a Monday night against the Nuggets. Yeah, like the Blazers got thrashed and it was not particularly competitive. But Clingan, even before the game was like total, like, you know, garbage time for a full 12 minutes in the fourth quarter, Clingan was playing pretty well on offense. He did not play particularly well on defense. It's not a good matchup for him. Jokic is one of those dudes he's like faster than the slow dudes and somehow also faster than the fast dudes because he just moves at a speed that is like imperceptible to other humans. He's so freaking strong. It's hard to put a little guy on him. And then he always seems to outrun other bigs. And the craft is just unmatched. I think he's one of the best players in the history of the sport. He's, I think, the best player in the game right now. And the Nuggets are a great transition team, and that is not a strength of Donovan Clingan. He's not a sprint down the court, prevent guys in transition. He's a good drop big, get set, make dudes take jump shots, keep them away from the rim, like that type of drop big. Even if on some situations where the Blazers like late in clock or switch something because they have to just to like stay attached, Clingan looks lost guarding at the 3-point line like 22 feet from the rim, much less trying to make decisions in full speed running back and, you know, trying to cover 50 feet. It's just not his strength. This is not a particularly good matchup for him, but it is a big opportunity. And it doesn't mean that he can't get better at it. It just means that if you were to pick where can Clingan do his best? This is not a game where you'd think that Clingan could do his best, but I think there is something intriguing about saying like, hey man, you got to play, and you got to play against the best player in the world. Go get it. I think that is, there is something useful about that opportunity, even if you know you're set up to really struggle, because if you're going to learn on the job, you might as well learn on the hardest part of the job. I think there's some truth to that, although your mileage may vary there. The thing with Clingan, though, is that he just doesn't play a ton of minutes. The Blazers have, by design and perhaps by sort of like roster design and coach preference, and I think those are related but independent things, separate, I should say, not independent, separate things, but related. Roster construction was made by the GM. The coaching decisions are made each night by Chauncey Billups, and they're both kind of working against giving an obvious big minute role to Donovan Clingan. He has this season appeared in 39 games. In just 10 of those 39, he's topped the 20-minute mark. And in just 3 of those 29 games, he has topped the 25-minute mark. He doesn't even typically play half the game. Like, that's not the type of minute it is. In fact, he has played more games, 4, where he has played single-digit minutes, fewer than 10 minutes, than he has played north of 25. Like, he has a low-minute role. Obviously, like, he was going to be behind Deandre Ayton just sort of naturally. And then like DA got rolling in January and February. And it's like, well, yeah, you're obviously not going to play behind him. And the Blazers during that win streak were really committed to a tight rotation. And Clingan was one of the guys getting pinched during that rotation a little bit. But with the injury to Ayton, there's going to be opportunity for him. And if Rob doesn't play on Wednesday, there's going to be a big opportunity for him. Clingan in the past, or in this season, the recent past, has played north of 25 in 3 different games, all starts, all games in which neither Deandre Ayton nor Rob Williams participated. The first time he did that was November 13th when he had the best game of his career, 17 points, 12 boards, 8 blocks, including 5 in the fourth quarter against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he was just fantastic. He was fantastic. That was in November. That was a long time ago in the grand scheme of an NBA season. We're talking 2 months removed from that. He also played in 25 plus in a game against Memphis, a game at Houston. Reading my notes wrong. A road win at Houston where he went scoreless and had 19 rebounds. A really funny game where it's like, I know what I'm capable of doing and I'm going to go do it. And the Blazers got a really impressive win on the road at Houston. And then the last game he topped the 25-minute mark. Again, no DA, no Rob Williams, was January 11th when the Blazers were at Miami and they got spanked. They lost by 21 and DC had it. That's Clingan. DC, your boy Kling had 8 and 10 in a 20-point loss. That's just 3 games. All of them have followed the trend of the 2 other centers not being available. If those gentlemen are not available, and I obviously no DA, and I don't anticipate Rob will play, you got to go with another big. Like, I don't think you can go small against. I mean, maybe you can go small against Zeke Naji and like play those minutes or whatever, and maybe you feel comfortable going somewhat small against DeAndre Jordan, but like you can't put Jabari Walker into the game as your lone big when Nikola Jokic is on the court. So it's going to be DC and it's going to be Duop Reith if those gentlemen are available, and it is a chance for Clingan to step into a bigger role in the games that he has started this season. Clingan is averaging 22 minutes a game, 7 points, 9.9 rebounds, basically 7, 9, and an assist. Though, if on the season, if he was like a 7, 10, and 1 type of rookie, you'd be like, yeah, that's pretty darn good. And teams with maybe a little more traditional rebuild lineups would have cleared the way for Donovan Clingan to play 22 minutes a night. They don't have that. On a bench, in his bench role, when he's come off the bench this year, Clingan is averaging 13.9 minutes per game. That's a little bit weird that they've chosen to do it that way, but they have. There's nothing you can do about it now. We've passed the All-Star break. They're still freaking doing it if everybody's healthy. It is what it is. But what I'm interested in for Clingan is, can he continue? I think his big struggles have been on offense, right? He just doesn't have great touch, doesn't have great footwork. The 3-point shooting is intriguing, but he's not someone who's right now looks to be like, oh, he's going to bomb 5 threes a game and like figure it out. Like, he's going to be opportunistic and take top of the key threes when he's open. Occasionally, if it works, he'll space to the corner and get some of those corner jumpers. But like, we're talking 1 attempt a game, maybe a second one if the first one goes in, type of thing. Most of his offense is going to come as an offensive rebounder and as a roll man catching lobs, or they throw it over the top and he tries to make a move inside. He's not a direct post-up guy. He just doesn't have the skills for that right now. He's a play finisher on rolls, and he is an offensive rebounder, and he's going to take the occasional 3-point jump shot. That's his space. I don't want Donovan Clingan when he starts to like expand way beyond what more can DC do? Like, that's not exactly what I'm screaming for. But I am screaming to see what he can do with just a little more opportunity, right? Like, if Clingan plays, if you carve out a space for him during this time of being shorthanded up front of 25 minutes. How does he look wind-wise? Does he look absolutely exhausted? And he's going to probably play that much tomorrow night. So, like, how much can he play without looking absolutely exhausted? And, that game against the T-Wolves, when he had 17, 12, and 8, he looked pretty damn tired. He had a monster fourth quarter. At some point, if the coach, if the medical staff thinks it's safe to let him play 30 some minutes, let him go, right? Let him see what it seems like. Why I say medical staff is because I think the Blazers have really very, very intentionally, very specifically been careful about the load that they give Clingan. How big of a workload are they comfortable giving him? It's clearly the way they've treated him with managing his minutes with Rob, that like when he doesn't play, they very specifically keep him on the bench. That seems to be like a medical decision, as much as it is a Chauncey Billups decision, because he's active on those nights. They're just not putting him in the game. So I want to see him just what can Clingan do in a 25-minute role? Can he continue to build a little bit on offense? He doesn't need to add more to his game. Can he continue to be a presence on defense? Great rebounder, has some real defensive instincts. Obviously, there are some things that he's not great at on defense right now. He's a freaking 20-year-old rookie. Like, this is the reason, I thought we'd see maybe more of this at some point this season, but like the reason I want to see him get 25 minutes is not because I think he's going to be excellent, but precisely because I think he's not going to be. And I want to see how he handles the struggles. I want to see how he handles the bigger minute load, and I want to see if there are new wrinkles that we haven't seen yet that he continue to add to his game. This is an opportunity for Clingan. It might be one game and everybody's back after the All-Star break. It might be several games. It might be there's a world in which the Blazers injury report gets pretty heavy after the All-Star break, and Clingan is pushed into this role where he's just playing a lot more. I am at a point in the season, I've probably been here since like December 1st, where I would just like to see what he can do with more on his plate. And when he gets more on his plate and struggles, I want to see how he responds to those struggles. And if he gets more on his plate and excels, I want to see how he builds on his success. The other name I've been thinking about as I look at this Blazers long injury list is like Shaedon Sharpe. Is he going to make a return to the starting lineup? Let's talk a little about Shaedon Sharpe, who might be back after 13 games coming off the bench. Join me in that third segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about OpenPhone. If you are running a small business, you're wearing a whole bunch of hats, and your personal phone can become your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day and night. And as your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal phone number. That's where OpenPhone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. Doesn't that sound nice? For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone or your computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also has call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customers, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonNBA. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/lockedonNBA for 20% off 6 months. OpenPhone.com/lockedonNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will gladly port them over at no extra charge. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. When the Blazers' lengthy injury report came out yesterday, I immediately thought of Donovan Clingan. How's he been as a starter? What's he going to be like as in a bigger minute role? How has he fared in the games when the Blazers haven't had centers in front of him? And the second name after thinking a little bit about DC, the second name that came up as I continued to parse the injury report is like, oh yeah, Shaedon Sharpe might step into the starting lineup. In fact, no Ayton, no Scoot. Rob, Jeremy, and Chris, have all of those guys missed time. It's pretty likely that the starting lineup Wednesday, the final game of the All-Star break, is Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, Toumani Camara, Deni Avdija, and Donovan Clingan. I think that's a pretty intriguing lineup. I think 4 of those dudes, Deni, Tu, Shea, and Clingan, are part of the longer-term future. And shoot, the way this front office operates, Anthony Simons might be part of the longer-term future as well. So, I think that's an intriguing group. I did look up that lineup data. I'm someone who I think lineup data is intriguing, albeit maybe not the end-all be-all, because it's often very small, very noisy data that doesn't actually tell you anything. And when I looked up that 5-man grouping on Cleaning the Glass, they've been pretty terrible. They played just north of 50 possessions together, and they've been bad on both sides of the ball. Not a meaningful sample size. they've played 25 minutes across 6 games according to NBA.com. They haven't played very much, but I like as an intriguing lineup. I'm into it. Against Denver, it might not be ideal, but I think in the larger scheme of like not facing an all-world center, it has some real intrigue. I think Tumani and Denny have just established themselves as, the Blazers' best 2 players this season. They set a baseline of physicality and intensity. Occasionally, Denny goes nuts on offense. Occasionally, Tumani makes all his threes. Both of them are typically very competitive on defense, and Denny brings that turbo end-to-end grab-and-go stuff on offense, plus a little bit of secondary playmaking that has let Anthony Simons play off the ball more, and I think Anthony Simons has very much and very obviously benefited from playing in a more natural 2-guard role in like some offensive sets where Denny gets to initiate and Simons gets to be an off-ball guy. They have a little pet set that they run where it's like a pick-and-roll action where there's an exit screen where Anthony Simons goes to the corner and gets an exit screen, meaning like Anthony Simons cuts down the lane and then gets a screen as he leaves the lane. As he exits the lane, finishes his action. Sorry to get a little jargony there for you. I apologize. Like they run this little pet action where it's like, it looks like a high pick and roll, but there's some weak side action for Anthony Simons to get a screen in the corner. They've run it a bunch with Denny handling. And it's been really nice to set Anthony Simons up for some shots in the corner. I really like it. And I think it's really helpful. And it's the type of creative offense that I think having another capable ball handler who's also a capable driver to keep guys honest has really helped. That has really helped. So I like the idea of this lineup a lot. Maybe a little light on shooting. Obviously, like Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe together on defense could be pretty dicey, particularly Sharpe against the Nuggets because he can fall asleep a little bit off the ball, and they're such a good cutting team, can get a little bit dicey. But I think, when Shaedon Sharpe got moved to the bench, it was a pretty defensible position in the grand scheme of basketball, right? Like, he was not playing well on defense, according to some good reporting from Jason Quick of The Athletic. Basically, like Chauncey Billups told, this is from a story that Jason wrote recently, a couple weeks ago, maybe last week. Chauncey Billups said, "Hey, Shea, if you don't, you're going to lose your starting spot unless you start being more focused and more attentive as a defensive player." And Shaedon Sharpe was not focused or not attentive. And he said, "Hey, man, you're going to the bench because, these minutes are earned, not given." And I think in the grand scheme of coaching a basketball team, that's probably the right move, right? And in general, Sharpe hasn't played like a ton less off the bench. In 13 games off the bench, he's playing 27 minutes and averaging 15, 3.5, and 1.5. Like that's 3.5 boards and 1.5 assists. His usage is almost identical coming off the bench as it was as a starter. Like he is not playing a wholly different role. His numbers were better as a starter this season because he's just playing more minutes. He's playing 32 as opposed to 26. And so his numbers reflected. He was averaging 18 a game and 18, 4 and closing in on 3 assists when he had a starting role as opposed to a little bit less all the way around. Although again, his like usage is the same. He has a very similar like on-court role, albeit less minutes. That's the big thing that's changed. And I think like in general, the decision to move him to the bench was a defensible one in the grand scheme of an NBA team and coaching an NBA team and trying to get the most out of youngsters. Where the sort of challenge is here and the logic gets a little more, the logic should be maybe parsed out a little bit more is like, obviously, you want to hold guys accountable and don't let them develop terrible habits, and you want them to like play the right way and all of those things. But like, there is no carrot; there is only stick. It seems to me that there is no way for like Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson move to the bench, and then like because you aren't playing at the level you want. But there's only stick. There's no carrot in which those two gentlemen move back into the starting lineup and play 35 minutes a night because of the nature of the roster. That's not necessarily a Chauncey Billups problem. He's trying to coach the roster he has. He can only coach the roster he has. That's a roster construction GM challenge that Chauncey Billups is navigating. But to me, I note like there is only stick. There is no carrot here because there's no reward. I will say 13 games off the bench. Shaedon Sharpe has played 5 of those games has played 30 plus minutes. There are times when he plays well and gets to play. And there's times when Scoot has come off the bench and he plays well and he gets to play. There's just not times when there's like one outlier game when Anthony Simons got benched, when both of those gentlemen got to close, because both of them were playing well and Ant was like exceptionally bad, and it was like the right move and totally like a defensible coaching position. But sort of in the natural run of play, there isn't a way to get them both on the court and have a good defense and blah, 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 blah. So if Sharp gets to start, if the injury report holds as I believe it will, I'm excited to see what he's like in that role. I don't think Sharp is wired such that he's going to have a like a heck you type of game. He's not going to be like, you put me on the bench for 13 games, I'm about to show you, and score like 34. But he is sort of talented enough that at any moment he could have a totally expressionless 34 points, and you'd be like, I wonder what he's thinking as he pours in mid-range jumper after mid-range jumper, sprinkled in with a couple highlight dunks and a couple step back threes. Like, certainly he has talent to be a high level scorer in this game. The 3-point shooting hasn't come around this year for him. He might be, the truth about Shaedon Sharpe is he might never be a high level scorer. The peak of his possible outcomes involve him being an elite 3-point shooter. But there are plenty of positive ones for him where he is not a very good shooter, although I do think he has to improve from what he has shown this year. Sharp has, it's not the same opportunity necessarily as DC, because like if Jeremy Grant plays, I bet Jeremy Grant starts over Shea. And there is a world in which, you know, when they had a similar injury report the other night on Monday, Scoot Henderson started over Shea. Sharp is behind in the pecking order Henderson. He is behind, obviously, Anthony Simons, and he is behind the coach's preference to playing a bigger, more talented defensive lineup, which has certainly been the Blazers' most successful look as of late. But I wonder if Sharp can play well enough in a kind of a throwaway game that he throws a wrench into the logic, that he does play 35 minutes and he does have a monster game and he does play really a real attentiveness, and you say like, boy, what's gotten into him? And what's gotten into him is just an opportunity to get back that he doesn't want to lose, right? I'm not sure he's wired that way that you will see it in an obvious way, and he certainly won't tell anyone about it. But I want it's something I'll keep an eye on. How does if he does indeed move back into the starting lineup, does Shaedon Sharpe look wholly different, or does he look like he's looked off the bench, where it's like, yes, mostly the same dude. Sometimes he has good nights, sometimes he doesn't, but there isn't like the obvious chip on the shoulder thing. He might just not be wired that way. That outward emotion type of stuff that you see, that might be something you sort of have to pry into more as we get to know him a little bit. But like, we being the viewing public and me being a reporter, I will help you and you will watch along with me as best I can. But like, one of the things I'll absolutely be watching against Denver on Wednesday night is if Shaedon Sharpe is moved in the starting lineup, how does he respond? How do we feel differently about him? That is going to do it for today's program. Wednesday evening, as you're listening to this, later tonight, Blazers wrap up their pre-All-Star slate against Denver. I will recap everything you need to know about that game. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. So come back for tomorrow's show. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.